Well, hello everybody. Welcome to P.B.M. Money. So I was standing around the other day at my other job, and I was thinking, you know what? I wish I had a six-pack. It just so happened that I was thinking about that while I was trying to think of different types of content for my channel. And then I thought about it and I said, wow, I've been working for a couple of years now on a financial six-pack. Just never thought to call it that. So today, I think what I want to do is I want to start by assuming that none of us have a financial six-pack. So it's time for us to get into shape. And what are the couple things that it takes? It takes time, work, and commitment. Work and commitment. Those are not fun words, and that's why everybody doesn't have a physical six-pack, because it takes work, it takes commitment. It also takes knowledge. And I'm going to do another video in the not too distant future where I'm going to talk about the different financial shows you should watch to help build your knowledge about different things. But you need to get knowledge, whether you read it, read blogs, read books, watch videos, however it is you get your information, you're going to need to know not only what you're doing, but how to achieve what you want to get done. And lastly, you have to have the ability. And that ability comes from the previous two. If you don't know what it takes to get there, then how will you be able to do it? If you don't have the work ethic or the commitment to get to where you want to be, then how will you have the ability? All right, so let's talk about the financial six-pack. These are the 6 major things that I see to build up and get started to building a solid, see what I did there, solid? To get a solid beginning on your financial six-pack. And the first one is, and these are not in any specific order, but let's talk about your credit rating. Now, a good credit rating is 720 to 750 or 60. That's a really good credit rating. But it's like being in good shape. If you want a six-pack, you need to get your credit rating above 780. Now everybody shoots for 800, but there's really no big difference between 780 and 800, except, you know, bragging rights, and I'm not into that. But if you are, the goal should be 800 then. Number 2, income. Now, and I'm not, by the way, I want to say this. Having a six-pack does not mean have a lot of money. That's not what it means. It means be in shape. Be in financial shape. You can be in financial shape if you make minimum wage. Or you can be in financial shape if you make $10 million a year. The fundamentals don't change. All that matters is how much you're going to be able to do with it. That's all. So in your income, whatever your income is, you need to determine, is it steady? I used to be an insurance salesman, and I made X amount of dollars, and I was always trying to put Band-Aids on problems, and I did it for 5 years. I did okay. The problem is your bills are due monthly and your income comes sporadically. Now they say, you know, save some back, blah, blah, blah. That never works. So you need a steady income, at least a minimum steady income to cover your bills. Is there potential in your income to grow? If not, maybe you need a second job or a side hustle. You got to have enough money to take you from point A to point B. And if you don't have enough money, comes step 3, savings. Now, I grew up hearing live below your means. To most kids, that what does that mean? Well, the easy way to figure it out is write down the total amount of money you brought home last month. And then on the other side, write down the total amount of money you spent last month. If there's not a 50% difference, you're doing it wrong. You need to be able to save and live off of 50% of your take-home pay. Now you say, well, how can I do that? Well, it ain't easy. Just like being a gym rat, you know. That's not easy. Those guys that walk around there all buffed up, that ain't easy. That takes a lot of work. And it's not just pumping iron. Those guys watch their diet. They practice. They work out daily, different parts. They take supplements. It takes a lot of work to get there. It takes a lot of work to save money. I am soon to be 62 years old, and I am still working 70 to 80 hours a week. 60 to 65 of it at 2 different jobs, and the rest of it in my ministry. It takes commitment, and if you don't have it, you're never going to get a financial six-pack. Now, once you've got your savings down, and by the way, don't wait till you get 50 to start. When I started savings, there was no budge in my budget. I started with cashback credit cards, and here's why. Because I figured if I can't get my spending down anymore, maybe I can change the way that I'm paying for it and make some money, and that worked. Now, it would take a couple of years, but I'd save $500 and then I'd put that into a mutual fund. Now, it took quite a few years, but had lots of money in a mutual fund. Now, once you get your money saved, you've got money saved, now we need to start talking about investing. And each one of these, there's a whole different video that you could watch, a whole different, like the savings. There's different tricks and hacks that you can use to save money, to save on your utilities, your grocery bill, gasoline, rent, car payments, all kinds of different things that you can do. Here we're just going to hit on the high spots of the things you need to be cognizant of as you're trying to get into financial shape. And when we talk about savings, you need to get at least a 3-month or $1,000. Step 1 would be $1,000. Step 2 would be 3 months of an emergency fund in case your car breaks down or you got to buy something for your house. You've got the money and you don't have to throw it on a credit card. But once you get there, let's start talking about investing. Now, everybody says that you should just invest, put it in the stock market, and leave it. And when you're young, I agree. When you're old, I disagree. And I think that it varies among your age. I think the better rule that I've heard is if you don't need the money in the next 20 years, then spend some time concentrating on your investments, put it in there and leave it alone. But when you get to be a certain age and you realize, hey, I'm going to be retiring soon, I need to move some money around, and that's when the conventional wisdom is take money out of stocks and put them into bonds, because the chances are you're not going to lose anything. And how you get there and what you do, it all depends on your comfort level too. And it's not just stocks and bonds. What about real estate? Real estate is a good solid investment. They ain't making no mo of that. If you buy a house, they're not going to build another house right on your property. You own that. So that will have intrinsic value. And you can rent it. You can fix it up and sell it. You can do whatever it is you want to do with it. It's your property, and that's how you build wealth. So investing is very important. But you can't do that and shouldn't do that until you get your savings and your income under control. Now the next one is going to kind of surprise you, and that's insurance. And again, I think this varies on your age. As I told you, I used to be I used to sell insurance, and I sold mostly senior products. Um, and when you're young, there used to be a term when I was young called buy term and invest the rest. And the concept was that when you're young and you're healthy, you can get $1 million policy for pennies, and then whatever you would normally have spent on more insurance, invest in the market. It's a good, sound policy. The problem is most people won't do that. They'll buy the term, but they forget to invest the rest. But what you need to do, and when you're young, term insurance is fine. It's you can get it in 5, 10, 20 year increments where your rate doesn't change. But as you get older, and each time that term comes due, you should lower the term and buy more whole life. Because after a certain age, you can't buy term anymore or whole life. I mean, the age used to be 85 for whole life, and I don't know what it was for term, probably 60. But after a certain age, you can, and if you don't build it as you go, by the time you get to be retirement age, you won't have any insurance that you'll be able to, do what needs to be done when you die. And when it comes to whole life, you don't need a ton. You don't need $1 million policy. When you're young, you need a ton because chances are you got a family and a wife and kids and a dog and a house and a mortgage and education. So you need a lot of money. If you die, there's a lot of people relying on you. When you get to be older, usually your home will be paid for. You have your spouse, your kids will be gone. All they really need to do is to bury you. Now, it ain't cheap, trust me, I've done this a couple of times. It ain't cheap. So, but I would guess if you had, depending on where you live in the country, if you had between $20,000 and $40,000 a whole life when you passed away, that'll do it. And then take whatever assets you've got and leave them to the kids or family or have them liquidated and donated, whatever it is you're going to do with them. But insurance is an important part, and again, it varies by age. Most people don't tell you these things about varying by age. You realize it when you get to that age. I watch a couple of shows called, one of them is called Millennial Money. And they always talk about, invest and leave it and don't touch it. Well, I mean, when you're 30, that's fine. When you're 60, not so much. And they'll figure that out. But I'm trying to inform you guys so that you can, depend on what age you are, you can make the right moves and not, see, if you're 50 and you've got all of your money in stocks, you need to reevaluate and move some money around. I'm not saying get out of the market. I'm just saying be careful of your exposure. Because if you do the research, you'll find that when the market goes down, it takes several years just to break back to where it was, and then more years. So if you don't have 10 years to wait for the market to recover and start to grow again, you need to move some money around. And then number 6, when we talk about a financial six-pack, the 6th and final thing I want to talk about is your debt load. Now, when you're young, your debt load is probably heavy. You've got cars and house loans and student loans and, you got a heavy debt load. But as you get into your peak income earning years, you're supposed to be paying that stuff off. Most Americans don't. They just increase their lifestyle. And here's where you get into shape. Whether you're making minimum wage or you're making $10 million a year, you got to try to eliminate your debt. If you've got student loans, get rid of it. Do whatever it is you have to do, but get another job and concentrate all of that money on that. But get rid of your student debt as quickly as possible, because that is gaining you nothing. Your house loan. Now, paying off a 30-year loan can be rather hard and difficult, especially if you have a large mortgage payment. But you can house hack. You can have a renter. You can rent out part of your garage. If you've got a large yard, you can rent part of it out for somebody to, build a garden in. There's different ways to raise money from your property. And if you take that money and apply it to reducing your debt, that will make the rest of your six-pack become firmer. It does no good to work two jobs if you keep adding credit card debt. So what you need to do is, if you get a second job or as you're saving, you knock as much debt off as you can. And one more thing before I leave, I want to say this. All the experts will tell you when you start knocking off credit cards to go for the biggest balance first. And I disagree 100%. Their logic is sound. You will save more money. That's true. But let's say you have 5 credit cards, and each one of them, the minimum payment every month is $50. And you've got one that's $200 and one that's $2,000. The expert wants you to go after the $2,000. No. You pay off the smallest one. Let's say it's $200. Then next month you've got an extra $50 from that minimum payment to apply to the next one. So now you got $250. So you pay that one off. Now you've got $300 that you, so by the time you get to the biggest one, you can knock that one off pretty quick. If you start with the big one and go the other way, it takes longer for that snowball to start rolling downhill. But if you start with the smallest one, that snowball gains speed pretty quick, and when you hit that large one, you can knock it off pretty quick. Well, that's all I really wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about a six-pack because at my age, I wish I had a six-pack. I don't. I'm not in bad shape for my age, but boy, I sure do miss, So anyway, but we're talking about a financial six-pack. And just to run over them real quick, once again, so you can remember, is your credit rating, your income, your savings percentage, investing your money, insuring yourself, and lowering your debt. If you get those 6 things done, I promise you that financially you will have a six-pack and you will be prepared to go out and start really making progress on your financial independence. Well, you guys have a great week and happy investing.